Pastor. First of all, appreciate you allowing us to take over your office. You normally don't have all these cameras and lights and everything in here, but appreciate it.
They told me who needed it. I knew I needed to get out of the way because I know you're going to get what you want, so I need to get out of the way.
Well, we went to the first room. I was like, this is a little small.
Yeah, I could hear you saying it. When they told me, I heard your voice in my head. I knew exactly what was happening.
So what happened, my staff called me and they said, hey, you need to swing by and take a look at the room they have. They said, can you get here by 3 o'clock? I was like, I said, send me a photo. They sent me a photo. I said, I'll be there in 15 minutes. And so we came in, so I was like, yeah, I said, so I had to walk them through in terms of what the vision was, how he wanted to do it. So, but it worked out. First of all, we met the sister who did the design and all. She came by yesterday. Yeah. So she loved the lights that we added and stuff like that. So yeah.
She's our assistant pastor's wife. She's amazing. She redid this whole space, and we just finished it.
Okay.
So I'm glad that you guys love it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. No, when your assistant walked us in, I was like, yeah, we're gonna shoot it. Yeah, we're gonna shoot it.
Glad you're here.
Absolutely. Well, then, plus she told me, she said, you've been on the road so much.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So actually, we were going to record it here.
Okay.
And but you want to be gracious to the people who come in the house. So I went to a studio and did in the studio what I was going to do here. Worked out fine. You got done what you need to get done.
Yes, sir.
I got done what I need to get done. And good thing I wasn't here because I would have been pastor and I'd have been looking around. I would have had the audio people like, you see that camera right there? Get a picture of that. You see that? So it was good that I wasn't here. Because being here would have cost me $1 million.
No, it wouldn't cost you $1 million, but
close to it.
It's a couple. No, not close. It's a couple dollars that was spent. Yeah, it's a couple dollars.
You guys do it on the next level.
That's the only way. Yeah. So let's talk about, first of all, now y'all got a whole lot going on. You got construction all going on around here. Yeah. So that means there's growth happening.
Yeah, well, growth and a little strategy. So this is what I thought. So COVID came, and obviously we shut down like everybody else.
Right.
But people were still giving. So without people in the building, you got to think about 6-7 police officers at $40 an hour. You got to think about the light costs, the energy costs, the janitorial costs. So there's a lot of cost that goes into us opening, musicians and all of that.
Right.
So what we did was, not being in the house, we took everything that we would normally spend on a Sunday and we banked it. And so we used all of that to refurbish the house. So we did it in a debt-free manner. We're building a dream center on the south side of the building. It's about 40,000 square feet. It's totally for the community, for kids, basketball, hockey. You can do anything in there. Mm-hmm. And then obviously we had to add some parking spaces because we increased the sanctuary size by 700 plus overflow by 1,400. So it was all out of necessity. But I remember driving down the street, Roland, and trying to figure out how we were going to pay for it. And I thought, use the cost. Use the cost. Mm-hmm. So we did it, and here we are.
So I think what I've said this numerous times. I think what COVID did, obviously it forced everybody to reassess.
Yeah.
And there were those who were scared to death, thinking it's over. Church is over, business is over. But then others said, no, actually, this is opportunity. Same for us. I remember my CFO calling me, and advertising just completely shut down. And so it was April 2nd, and I said, look, let me think about it, pray on it for the next 48 hours. And then April 4th came, I told my staff, I said, look, so I'm gonna do 20% cut, not laying anybody off. I took a 75% cut. But what then happened was, and so then I said, I'm gonna go to our fan base, and I'm gonna say, look, y'all see what we've been doing for the last 2 years. This is where we are. And in the first 3 weeks, my fan base had given $30,000.
Wow. In
the first 3 weeks. I just was more aggressive in terms of asking. I would go on live and I would just talk for 45 minutes, and $6,000 would come in. And the thing is, we don't send them hats, T-shirts. So it's not like, hey, you give it this level, we'll send you this swag. Because I told them, I said, swag costs. So I said, you support us, money goes into the show. fans had us. And last year, our fan base gave 672,000.
That's amazing.
And then our numbers began to go up, which then, well, on the YouTube channel, advertising began to go up as well. So you talk about going, just growing exponentially, but we were positioned because we were already doing digital.
Mm-hmm.
We understood how to contain costs, how to do content. And so I got calls from churches all around the country. I actually did something for the AME and another denomination, teaching pastors about, look, you now have no choice. Mm-hmm. This is the camera to get, this is how you should do it or whatever. And so what COVID has done is actually caused a lot of black churches to get caught up in the 21st century, where many of them, they didn't care about Facebook, YouTube, they didn't want to televise. They were solely focused on the people in the pews. Now many of them said they're now reaching people all across the country and the world, and they actually are showing growth.
Yeah, it was COVID for us, and I think for a lot of people it was showing the ready versus the not ready, right? Like you, we were already scaling towards digital, and we had hired mixers, and we had hired people to come in and to do all the things we needed to do to master things. Because, you know, sound is another thing that you have to have quality control over for the internet. You know, the days of having a guy sitting in the sound booth in the back of the church was over. Now you had to have somebody on stage to mix because you had people listening online. And what I found out is that now that we're back, we got a whole new church.
Right.
We've got a whole new church because we were reaching people. And I thought, you know what, this is what the church should have been doing in the first place. And we finally woke up one day and had to do church outside of the walls.
There you go.
Which is what everybody's been telling us the whole time.
Right, and I would often tell pastors, I said, you do know how the church grew when Jesus' disciples and followers were going from city to city. I said, y'all, that's technology. It's the same.
Same thing.
But so many were locked into building, pews. I need to see people. I don't really know that thing. And so now they're seeing it. And to your point, a whole new church.
Yeah, see, one of the side effects of live preaching is instantaneous gratification. So it wasn't the growth that stunted a lot of people. It was the inability to receive the instantaneous gratification. And so since it became about what the people did for us, our egos or the response that we got from the people, then it became mundane to be in an empty building trying to do it the same way. But see, that's when passion kicks in. If you have a passion for what you do, it doesn't matter if it's 5 people in the house or 5,000.
Right.
Luckily for me, when I started this church, with the help of God, I had 5 people. So it was empty when I started. I had a whole lot of days of empty, so I knew how to do it empty. The greatest thing about COVID for us is that the people of our ministry recognized how much they did not need my presence in order for our church to flourish. We got so many small groups now. We got so many small group leaders. We have people hosting watch parties in homes. We have people in Miami. We have people in Africa. We have people in New York, California, Atlanta, all over the nation, yet the world, who are now sitting in rooms, still watching our services in front of television sets. And now we're actually doing the Great Commission. So, you know, COVID may have been a pandemic, but it was the best opportunity for a lot of businesses, not just the church.
Right.
You know, there's so many businesses that are scaling right now because, you know, this tragedy was the necessity. It was the necessary evil we needed for invention. And so a lot of things have come out of this. And the truth is, I think that the return for us is going to be dual. Some people think that it's over, that church as it is the way it is now, mostly online, few sprinkled people in the house. I don't believe it.
I agree, because I think what folks, again, when you talk about old way, it was, this is the only way you need to receive this, and that was the only way. It wasn't taking into account how people's lives have changed. I would often, when I was in Chicago, I would tell Reverend James Meeks, the second week in May,
City of Hope,
I'll see you in September.
Yeah.
He's like, what? Because events I was covering or speeches, I was literally gone every weekend from May through September. Maybe 2 weekends, maybe once a month I was actually in town. But that Saturday and Sunday, I was gone. Or if I was coming back, I was coming back on a Sunday, so I wasn't at church. And so it's understanding how people's lifestyles have changed. We now working 24 hours, meaning there are people who are working morning shift, midday, night shift, and how do you reach them? And so the church has had to adjust to the people, and which it all boils down to, how do you reach the people?
Yeah, and that's what we're supposed to always been doing. I've got a member of our church right now. He's a oil exec. He said, Pastor, I love you. He said, but I'm not sure I'm ever going to come back in person. Now, he still gives, still calls me, still checks on me. He said, I just want you to think about this. I live an hour away. Church starts at 9 o'clock and then again at 11. I like the 9. So that means I've got to get up at 6.
Right.
Okay. Then I've got to drive the hour. I got to wait on my wife because she's late. This is him telling me, right? Then he says, I get there, and then I got to get to the parking lot a half hour early because of all of that. Then I sit in the church. We're there an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then I got to get back in the car and drive. By the time I get home, it's 3 o'clock. He said, but now?
That's 9 hours.
That's 9 hours. It's a whole day.
Right.
He said, but now I wake up. I put some pants on so that I'm not offensive. He says, I turn you on the television. Right about 15 minutes early, I get everybody in the house at the table. We eat breakfast, we pray, we watch the service, and then we go about our day. And it saved him a tremendous amount of time.
And more time with his family.
And more time with his family, which is something we always say.
Right.
I think that not only the people, I think leaders, spiritual leaders, are going to have to adjust and understand that this is going to be a part of the normal, and people are not sacrilegious because they don't come every week. Because they were not sacrilegious when we couldn't open.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have to understand that there's a new normal and that we have to have the church open for those who decide to come, and we have to have the outreach portion via the internet for those who decide not to, and accept both of those as viable realities.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting when you talked about having these groups in different cities. I've talked to other pastors who now, when they do travel, they are now connecting with people who say, oh, I watch every Sunday. I watch your Bible study. Folks who before it would have never actually done that unless that pastor came to a city for a revival or an event at their particular church.
And when you open, those people are now, they feel safe to travel. We had church Sunday. People are saying, oh, I came from Mississippi. I came from Alabama.
Wow.
I came from New Orleans. I came from here. Because now that we're open, they want to see what they've watched for the last 2 years.
Right.
So we have an opportunity to do national ministry in a way in this time than ever before. I just thank God for COVID. I hate the lives lost. I hate the malpractice, if you will, by certain government officials, because we know there's blame to be placed everywhere. I hate how it became political. I hated to see the bodies in the morgues. I hated to see people suffering in the hospital and family members couldn't come in and see them. But in every dark night, the sun still shines behind that cloud. And I believe that the church has to be ready because, Roland, you remember 9/11 came. Mm-hmm. And when those planes went into those towers,
everybody named Mama they were in church that evening.
And there will come a time, something will happen where people will run back to the local assembly, and we have to be ready. Just like the prodigal son's father was, they may have gone astray, but when they decide to come home, we got to be there with open arms.
When we talk about outreach, that's one of the things we talk. That's why when I talk to gospel artists, when I was talking to Carr, he was talking about being in Japan. This guy couldn't speak English. He knew all the words to his songs. This McDonald's tour, this gospel, this inspiration tour, traveling to multiple cities. Now in his 15th year, same thing. How do you reach people in a different way, raising money for Ronald McDonald House, but also at the same time spreading the word, connecting with people, connecting with community, and that's really what the body of Christ is supposed to be about. How do you connect community? It's not just you.
Yeah, you remember Paul says that we should take the Lord's Supper, and as often as you do it in remembrance of me. Now, I grew up in an old school Baptist church, True Life Missionary Baptist Church, 2323 West 11th Avenue, Gary, Indiana, where the Reverend Dr. Cato Brooks Jr. was the pastor. We had the calculation board on the wall that told us It was 30 people in Sunday school, and we raised $130. I remember those days. Right up front was a communion table. Do this in remembrance of me. All of my life, I thought that we were supposed to remember him psychologically. Upon further research and study, I realized that that word remember didn't mean psychological. So, give an example. If a person loses an arm, loses a finger, loses a leg, it's called being dismembered. So when the Bible says that do this in remembrance of me, he's actually saying that every time we do it, we should come together. We should remember. That's why we're members of the church. The entire efficacy of the church is about gathering, coming together, in spite of socioeconomic status, in spite of titles, in spite of color, in spite of regime or denomination. I think this tour, as I sit here and listen to all the gospel artists of all genres, all colors, all creeds, and black people, we're the only people where you can have multiple colors in the same color. And when I look at the beauty, the tapestry of what has come through this building, this is what the church is supposed to be doing. And it is in a lot of places. Just don't think that it gets enough camera time. You know, there's not enough speech, not enough room in airtime, because people don't often tune in to hear great stories. You know, we're addicted to cycles of difficulty, but this tour, what you're doing, what the people around, I wish people could see all the volunteers that are just here to make sure that the gospel can be spread in a public format where people can see it. So it's amazing that this is an example of what we all should be doing.
Well, and I think that when we talk about technology, when we talk about how you use it, that still is the most important thing.
Yeah.
How can I had somebody come up to me, this was probably 20 years ago. Somebody came up to me and they said, the brother's like, "You got the mark." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Hey, you should be preaching." I was like, "Nope." I said, "Nope." And he went, "What do you mean?"
You said it just like that?
I said, "Nope." I said, "It ain't gonna happen."
That face.
I said, "It ain't gonna happen." And see what, and he was like, he said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Well, first of all, you assume I haven't already had that conversation with God." I said, "Let me explain to you what was told to me. Roland, in 5 minutes of radio, you will speak to more people than most preachers will speak to in an entire year."
That's good.
I said, television, radio, now digital. I said, this is what I told him. I said, in my estimation, there are a whole bunch of people who are behind pulpits who are not supposed to be there. I said, you have defined ministry solely as somebody has to preach. I said, that's part of the problem. It's a bunch of people who are operating outside of their lane. I said, because they think this is what I'm supposed to do, when in fact, I said, no. I said, you can be reaching and touching people in a totally different way. I said, so no, that ain't it. My wife, she went to seminary, she got the papers. I said, no, that's her. I said, I'm bootleg. That's what she do. You know, but he was just shocked that I said that, not understand. I said, no. I said, that's exactly what God told me. He said, no, I got enough people doing that. He said, but I ain't got as many doing this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we need ministry-minded people who are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. I think we need ministry-minded people doing syndicated radio. I think we need ministry-minded people in space programs, leading STEAM and STEAM programs, more principals, police officers, politicians, because the ministry isn't relegated to the local assembly. And I think you're absolutely right. You reach more people in a 5-minute segment than most preachers will reach in a year, some yet in a lifetime. The other space, I think, is that pastors like myself and others who have an opportunity to share those type of platforms with you should take our message to people like you to propagate that message in our presence and our absence.
Right.
And teach some of us to stay where we belong and not always trying to get where we want to be.
Right.
Because there are a lot on television that should be just behind the pulpit.
Same thing.
It goes both ways.
Same thing.
Absolutely.
It was so fun. It was so funny when Jack and I got married. We had to go to a counseling session we got married at my parents' church. It was a Methodist church in Houston, and we were sitting there having a conversation with the pastor, and we ended up talking about mega churches and other churches, and he said, well, I got to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I said, hold up. I said, I'm sorry, didn't you just tell us when you got here, y'all, they had about 700-800 members, and they couldn't meet their budget, and half of them left, and you're exceeding your budget? I said, maybe the problem is you ain't supposed to have a mega church. And so looked at me, and it was so he's supposed to be a marital counseling session that flipped.
And you start talking to him.
Well, I start talking to him. But my whole point was, if you are in search of that, then you're not actually doing what you're supposed to do. I said, not everybody is designed to do that. Not everybody is just. I said, not everybody is designed to have this size of a church.
Yeah.
I said, so for me, I said, I'm not chasing what somebody else has. I said, I told him this here. I said, this may sound weird. I said, but we have to learn to be content and ambitious at the same time.
That's good.
I said, so if I never get beyond where I am, I'm thankful to God what I have. I said, but it doesn't mean that I'm not ambitious and working to build.
And see, sometimes ambition should be shrouded in serving somebody else so that the opportunity for you to serve can evolve. David didn't put a resume in to become the king of Israel. He served the current king, and by default, and the oil being transferred from Saul to him, he is now the people's king.
Right.
But when he became king, he was first king over Judah. Then Israel, because it has to happen in stages. He was king over Judah for 7 years before he was ever the king of Israel for the next 33. That's the combination of the 40. I think that most people are offended by the fact that people will tell them that maybe they should be okay with the local assembly.
Right.
I say it to singers all the time. Every time a singer can sing, they automatically think that means that they should tour. Some voices are called for the house. You can tear a church up, but nobody will buy the album, and that's okay. I know a pastor right now, he has a guy who has a doctorate in music, and he was pursuing being an artist. The pastor went up to him and said, I'm not trying to stifle your dreams, but do you understand that you have an opportunity to lead the symphony of our city, and you want to go be a gospel artist? Now, maybe you're looking at the gospel artists who get to do 30 dates.
Right.
But I can show you a multiplicity of them who are at home right now hoping that somebody calls.
Right.
You have to make it big where you are. You have to make it big where you're called, and you have to be okay.
Right.
If what your big is considered small to somebody else. I've learned. When we started the church, we had 5 people. I've said that a million times. 5 people. Within 16 weeks, the church had grown to 800. Within the first year, 1,500. By the 5th year, we were at 5,000, and then it leveled. And I thought, well, maybe this is all God has for me. For an entire year, it leveled. I went back to the basics, started doing leadership, training, then I started to find out that there are caps at every level. Mm-hmm. Then our church went to 15,000, and it kept growing. Now, you could brag about that. But I was talking to a young pastor who lives in a city where there are only 5,000 people, and he has a church of 700. And he was telling me, what am I doing wrong? You guys have 15,000+, and I only have 7. I said, what you're doing wrong is you're looking at it from the wrong angle.
Right.
I live in a city where there are 5 million people.
Precisely.
And 15,000 members. Actually, I'm failing because you've got 700 of the 5,000 in your town. If I had that ratio, I'd have to rent out the NRG Center just to have worship. So I think that people need to stop looking at numbers, look at ratios and percentages, and they'll find out that they're doing a lot better than they really think they are.
Which is why actually this was my pastor Ralph West always emphasized it. He said I don't look at members. He said, how many families do I have?
Absolutely. And look at what he's built out there.
He said, because the family part, he said, now you're multi-generational.
Yeah.
He said, members, he said, folks can be transient. They can be a member now, hop somewhere else. He said, but typically a family stage.
Yes.
They on lockdown.
That's good.
He said, so how many? He said, so when he travels, he has. A preacher like, we got X amount of members. He's like, no.
How many
How many
families?
families do you have?
I'm stealing it. Thank you. I'm robbing that one. That's good.
You know, and that's and again, so it's just sort of one of these things. I think the point, last point here, what you just made there, we talked about the brother who was the gospel singer, and I'm working. I will eventually write this book, but I've spoken on it a whole lot. I think what happens is we want something, but we never add at the end of that, if it's in your will. I remember when I for 4.5 years we had been trying to become a television contributor. Me and Age had been working on it. I did all the different networks, and finally in 2007, I was sitting here. I'm working at the Chicago Defender, and I'm sitting, and then it's like ownership issues. What's going on? So I'm like, okay, well, if I contract's up in 2007, it's 2006. Contract up 2007, March 2007. What can we do? Maybe if I do this, do that. And God says, I will not open another door until you publicly announce that you're leaving. I was sitting here like, okay, I'm doing this job. I'm getting paid $110,000. If I walk away, I have nothing. What am I going to do? And it was this whole back. You got to publicly announce that you're leaving. When I did, literally next day a phone call comes in. What we had been doing for 4.5 years with CNN and all of the networks accelerated in 2.5 months.
Wow.
And I remember sitting in the lobby. I was brought in to be a guest on another person's pilot. They were looking to hire them. And I sat in, and I remember I sat in the lobby, and I sat down, and I said, if it's your will for me to be here, make it so. That's the only thing I said. And I think in the conversations I've had a lot of different people, they pray for a whole lot of stuff, but they never put on that end.
If it be your will.
If it's your will for me to be here.
Yeah, when I hear that, the first thing comes to mind. My pastor used to say this. He said, the first car that I ever had, Roland, was a 1991 Ford Escort, navy blue. I lived in Gary, Indiana, so it snowed there, and they put snow on the ground, salt on the ground to melt the snow. Well, the salt erodes the bottom of the car.
Right.
It had eroded the bottom of my car so much that I could literally put my foot through to the ground. So we had to put plywood on it and then put the rug on top of it. That was the best part of the car. The other part of the car was I used to have to drive it like this because it needed a wheel alignment. So the wheels were straight, but it wasn't in connection with the steering wheel. So I would literally drive, this was straight. When I was turning, my wheel was straight. But when I was straight, my wheel was turned. So I take it in. I don't get it fixed because it's only worth $900. But we had a mechanic in the family. I take it in the shade tree in the garage. He said, oh, you need a wheel alignment. When you say that about it being God's will, most people need a WILL, a will alignment. You have to make sure that God's will and your will are in lockstep, because you don't want to be like this and God is like that. You want to make sure. Jesus said it on the cross, Lord, if it is your will,
Right.
let this bitter cup pass me by.
Right.
Nevertheless, not my will,
Thy
will be done. There is nothing wrong with letting God know what you desire. But you have to also say, if your destiny for me
Right.
is not the desire I have for myself,
Right.
nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done.
See, that's why when people say, and I've had this conversation with a lot of entrepreneurs, God will give the desires of your heart. I said, first of all, you're making the assumption that that's his will. I said, what that really says is, okay, so if you want to be that hard-headed, I'm going to let that thing happen. I didn't bless it. It's not my will, but that's the desires of your heart. That's free will. Then when it fails, they sitting there. I don't understand what happened.
Yeah.
God, what happened? That was the desires of your heart.
Yeah. That's Israel.
Allowed to happen.
You asked for Saul. I'll give you him.
Right. And then you got mad. You're like, no, hold up. No.
Yeah.
Y'all said y'all wanted a king. I told you ain't need one.
Absolutely.
So I gave you one. Oh, you mad at the one I gave? The one that rose up. No, y'all want the tallest and the handsomest.
Yeah.
Oh, you got everything. That's why I had this huge argument with this sister because she like, my man got to be 6 feet tall. I said, so if a really, really good 5'9" brother came along, and she's like, why you wishing that on me? I said, no. I said, let's have this conversation.
Since you want to have it.
I said, she want to have it. I said, so you like, he's got to be 6 feet. I said, so has it dawned on you why you do not have a man up to this point? I said, has it ever occurred to you who you may have passed up, who was sent your way, who didn't meet your specifications? Oh man, we had a vigorous back and forth.
Yeah.
But I just want to get her to understand. I'm like, no, that's the same thing. You wanted to look like this. You wanted to, and I've seen it many times. Folks like, I want the house to be this way. I want the car to be this. I want it to be this. And she's like, okay, all right. You go ahead and get it. Then it's like, well, I'm still making these payments. No, you said you wanted that car.
Yeah, because people look at what they want, overlooking what it takes to keep what they're asking to get, or what it costs them to get what they're asking for. The only reason why Israel wanted a king is because they saw everybody else with one. But they didn't ask anybody else what it was like to have a king.
Right.
And so, whoever that young lady is, I've heard those conversations about I want it to look like this, I want it to look like that.
From brothers too.
And absolutely. More brothers than sisters. But God will, according to Paul, when we want something that he doesn't want for ourselves, Paul says that God makes a decision to turn us over to a reprobate mind. That means I'm actually going to give you what you want, but I'm also going to leave the maintenance up to you too. I'm gonna give you exactly what you want.
All on you.
It's all on you.
Don't come holler at me.
Because the pain you feel is yours to feel and yours to heal. I'm gonna give it all to you, and you take care of it all.
That's it right there.
Yes, sir.
Doc, I appreciate it.
Man,
Good chatting with you.
God bless
Enjoy,
you,
appreciate it.
Yes, sir.